An elderly man named Paul lives in a nursing home. He recalls events that occurred during his years as a prison guard. Paul's memories take us to the Louisiana State Penitentiary, a death row facility called the Green Mile because of the greenish linoleum covering the floor of the corridor. Paul worked as the head warden, and his duties included monitoring death row inmates and preparing them for their final journey to the electric chair. His fellow other wardens maintained order and performed similar duties. Among them are the friendly Brutus, nicknamed Brutus, the experienced and kind-hearted Dean, as well as Harry, another responsible officer. However, not all jailers are equally conscientious and humane. Percy, the young warden, is cruel and abuses his power. He is rude to the prisoners, despises them, and enjoys being able to participate in executions. Although his colleagues disapprove of this behavior, they are forced to tolerate Percy because he has high-ranking connections and can easily affect their careers. One day, a new inmate, John, is brought into the prison. John is a huge black man with a formidable appearance but a soft and gentle character. He has been convicted of murdering 2 little white girls and has been sentenced to death. At first glance, John looks intimidating, but it soon becomes apparent that he is not like the other inmates. He behaves in a humble and even somewhat childlike manner, drawing sympathy from some of the warders. Paul notices that John, despite his size, seems kind and simple-minded, and this makes him doubt the justice of his sentence. Over time, Paul and the other warders begin to notice that John has strange and inexplicable abilities. This is first revealed when John heals Paul of a painful bladder infection he has been suffering from for a long time. This amazing healing amazes Paul and makes him further question John's nature and true identity. Later, John demonstrates his abilities once again when he heals a mouse that the prisoner Delacroix has tamed and which has become a sort of mascot for the block. This mouse, whom Delacroix named Mr. Jingles, appeared to be dead, but John brings it back to life with his touch. Paul and the other wardens realize that John Coffey is not just a man, but something much more, perhaps possessing a divine gift. Prisoner Edward is one of those awaiting execution on the Green Mile. Despite his criminal past, he becomes a sympathetic figure to the warders, especially after he tames Mr. Jingles. However, Percy does not miss an opportunity to bully Delacroix, as well as his mouse. One day, Percy promises to let the mouse go if it walks on his arm, but instead brutally steps on it. However, John once again demonstrates his abilities and heals Mr. Jingles, surprising and frightening those present. Percy, on the other hand, feeling hatred for Delacroix and enjoying his power, deliberately spoils his execution. He does not moisten the sponge that should soften the electric shock, and Delacroix dies in terrible agony. This incident shocks everyone present, and Percy is even more despised by his colleagues. Meanwhile, another important event occurs in the lives of the prisoners. The warden's wife, Melinda Morse, is seriously ill with an inoperable brain tumor. Paul, shocked by John's abilities, decides to take a risk and lead him to the warden's house, hoping that John will be able to help Melinda. Against all expectations, John does indeed heal the woman, taking the disease for himself and then disposing of it by handing it over to Percy, who was present in the prison at that moment. This effect drives Percy mad, and shortly thereafter he shoots the prisoner William Wild Bill Wharton, another criminal who was considered particularly dangerous and violent. This moment proves crucial to uncovering the truth about John. It turns out that it was William, not John, who was the real killer of those 2 girls, for which John was sentenced to death. Paul and his colleagues realize that John is innocent and begin to discuss the possibility of releasing him from prison. However, John himself refuses, explaining that he is tired of the pain and suffering in the world. He says that he feels other people's pain all the time and it is unbearable for him. John also admits that he wants peace and is not afraid of death, seeing it as deliverance. Paul and his comrades realize that they are forced to carry out the sentence. Despite their belief in John's innocence, on the day of John's execution, he is led to the electric chair. Everyone present is shocked and sad as they realize that a good and innocent man is being executed. John asks that they not put a sack over his head because he is afraid of the dark. Paul, with a heavy heart, fulfills John's last request and the execution takes place. Afterward, Paul and the other wardens are left depressed and devastated. Paul leaves the prison and can no longer work at the Green Mile. The story returns to the present day and we see an elderly Paul again. He tells his friend Elaine Connolly that after the events at the Green Mile, he began to notice strange changes in himself. He suspects that John's touch somehow affected his life and gave him an unusually long life. Paul reveals that his mouse Mr. Jingles is still alive, even though decades have passed. He also shares his fears that he will continue to live for a very long time, having outlived everyone he loves. Paul explains to Elaine that he doesn't know how much longer he himself will live. He has already outlived many of his friends and loved ones. He is over 100 years old, and he sees everyone around him aging and dying, but he continues to live. Paul says that every new day for him is a struggle with loneliness and pain that has accumulated over the years. He believes that his long life is a kind of punishment for not being able to prevent John Coffey's death.